Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tia McNair, the Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Student Success at AAC&U. So I have 15 minutes to wrap up this day. Lynn has given me my charge on the things that I need to say to make sure that you get what we're doing as our next steps at AAC&U. Did you have a good day? Yes. That is so good to hear. There are so many times when you're at a meeting like this. For me, I now have to go back and process and think through what I've heard and then figure out what does this mean for AAC&U as we move forward. But there are some times when I hear certain things and certain comments from the panelists or the speakers that, is it okay? I'm walking around. If anybody knows me, you guys, you know me. Y'all know me. I walk around. I'm not going to be at the panel. That really resonated with where we need to go and what we need to do as next steps. So Lynn started off this morning. She was talking about the role of higher education in the truth, racial healing, and transformation enterprise, and how we need to be leaders in helping to develop the next generation of strategic thinkers and critical leaders. We need to be a part of that movement that's happening, that the Kellogg Foundation is leading. That's the work that we have, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what we at AAC&U are going to do to move that conversation forward in just a few minutes. And then Gail asked us, and told us, we can't shy away from our responsibility. We cannot move from our responsibility in this work, and reminded us that we need to raise our voices, that they need to be heard, and they need to be heard now. And that we need to make sure that the word justice, do you remember that this morning? It's not just us. Exactly. It's that we do not co-opt it to be about just us. That's good. See, that resonated with me too. And then we need to have conversations. And you said this about the narrative and the counter narrative. And that is important for us as we help our students and we help ourselves become the leaders in our communities that we know, and whatever community that you exist in, that you live in, that you participate in. We need to be part of that movement. And then Gail actually challenged on something that we say here at AAC&U about inclusive. That maybe the language is not about being inclusive, but being expansive. That's a conversation that we need to have as an association. Is it time for us to move from the language of inclusive to expansive? And then LaJern, I love how she talked about how to seek accuracy, and how I love this particular one. I can't change the lens. Remember this from this morning? I can't change the lens you were born with, but I can give you different lenses through which to view the world. What a charge we have as educators and as leaders. And then we also heard from Stephen. He said the classroom is where we help students engage in discussions about how to live, how to behave, and how to inquire. That's our role. That's our charge. And Chris this afternoon, I love Chris this afternoon. He told us that activism is not a luxury. It is not a luxury. It's one that we have to embrace. Jonathan reminded us, and I think it's always important for us to be reflective, and my good friend here, Richard, does this so well. Reflective of what it means to be a Caucasian male in this society, and you identify the baggage that you carry and your blind spots, and move from your sole responsibility, but the need to be publicly responsible. That is important for us to remember as we go out to this conference, to our annual meeting, and back onto your campuses. Jonathan and Chris talked about trust. They talked about truth. And they reminded us about accountability. That's what we need to focus on. So I first want to say thank you. Thank you to all of you for being here today, for having the courage and to be here with us to have this discussion at AAC&U. And we have the important person here that we need to thank for leading this symposium and giving us a vision for this symposium is our new president, Lynn Pasquarella. Yeah. It is her vision. This day, this symposium, this topic is her vision of how she's leading AAC&U and the conversations that we're going to have as we move forward as an association. It's exciting, isn't it? To think about how our work is going to be rooted in the student experience. We're going to continue that legacy from the past to the present. And I also want to thank Dawn Whitehead, who is right here. She is our concept advisor for the annual meeting and for the symposium, the one that's been running around making sure that everything gets done. Dawn, please stand up. Suzanne is not in here. Suzanne Hires. Many of you have heard from her. You know who she is. She is the one who runs the logistics behind this meeting. We want to make sure that we say thank you to her and her leadership and her work and all that she does to make this conference a success. So please, she's not here, but let's tell her that we say thank you. And thank you to all of you, for being participants, for the panelists, for the speakers, for the concurrent session leaders. This movement, because remember, I don't know if you've heard this or not, but Lynn and I were at the White House at a meeting right after the election. We're not even going to talk about it. But right after the election, and our friends in the Domestic Policy Council said that they didn't know, they couldn't remember who to attribute this to or this comment to, but at the White House, they were having a conversation, and they said, we have to move from the moment to the movement. And that's what we're in. We're focused on the movement at AAC&U and the work that we're going to do going forward. So I want to say thank you to the Kellogg Foundation for supporting us. Thank you to Newman's Own for supporting our work. And we're going to have discussions about this. I have to do the shameless plug for the members meeting. Because we're going to have these conversations. You're going to hear about some things going forward in our conversation about inclusive excellence and liberal education, and what does that mean for the language that we use moving forward. So that is my plug. If you want to be engaged in those conversations, come to the members meeting this afternoon. Oh, Bethany said, our chief of staff just told me that there will be refreshments, just for you all to know. But what's next? What are we going to do? You heard Gail and Lynn talk about our collaboration and our partnership in the enterprise, and we actually released we did a press release yesterday. Many of you probably were traveling, so you didn't get to see it. So I'm going to tell you what our role is going to be in the enterprise for truth, racial healing, and transformation. It is very exciting for us. We are going to create centers for truth, racial healing, and transformation at higher education institutions across the country. Our goal at AAC&U is to create 150 centers. And that was endorsed by the board, 150 centers. Under Lynn's leadership, that is the vision of where we are going. And we are very thankful to have the partnership with the Kellogg Foundation and the partnership with Newman's Own to start this work. And you know that when we start this work, you have to start small. We're looking for additional funders as we're going, but Newman's Own Foundation gave us the money to seed the first 10 centers, and then the first Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation Institute. So it's a multi-year enterprise, and don't you love how Gail said this morning, it's an enterprise, it's not a project, it's not an initiative. This is an enterprise that we're focused on. So it's going to be multi-year. We're going to engage and empower campus and community stakeholders to break down the racial hierarchies and create a positive narrative about race in our communities. That's where we're headed. That's what our role is going to be in the enterprise. We're going to have a TRHT Institute next year. You're going to be able to apply to go to this institute. This is exciting because we're going to release a call for proposals from our campuses. And you're going to develop a transformative action plan to advance racial healing on your campuses and in your communities. Each center is going to envision what their community will look, feel, and be like when the belief in a racial hierarchy, remember what Gail said, she loves Star Trek. What's that word? Jettison. When it's jettisoned. We also are going to examine the current realities of race relations in your communities and the local history that has led to those realities. We're going to pinpoint key leverage points. We're going to use research. We're going to use your expertise, your knowledge as scholars, and working in collaboration with your students to really figure out who needs to be engaged with this work. And before you leave the Institute, you're going to have a visionary plan. And that plan is going to be developed over time in collaboration with your colleagues from AAC&U and your colleagues like Mike Wegner from the Kellogg Foundation. And I know it's so bad when I point you out because that just means there's going to be a beeline for you. But he's right here, just in case you know. And we're going to erase those structural barriers, the goals of the institute and of the centers. We're going to work on healing in our community. And with all the different aspects that Gail talked about this morning, with economic and legal and separation and poverty, we are not going to shy away from those conversations. We're going to have those conversations, and we're going to build on that framework so that we can have positive change. Here are our target cities, states, and regions. These are the areas where we're going to start. These areas, these cities, teams from these areas and these cities and these states have been in collaboration or discussions with the Kellogg Foundation. They have memorandum of understanding with them. We're going to start our work here, and we're going to move out. And for those of you who are not in those cities or those states or those regions, don't worry. We are constantly moving forward to get the next iteration of 10 centers. We are dedicated to this work. It is an enterprise. It is going to be the work of AAC&U and our diversity and equity and student success as we talk about liberal education and excellence. Whether we say expansive or inclusive, this is our work moving forward. So I was reading a book that Lynn recommended to me by Jeff Chang, We're Gonna Be All Right. And everyone on my staff were all reading it. And there's a part in here where this is what he said, history reminds us that desegregation is not a destination, it is a constant struggle. We heard our speakers today talk about the struggle. But every time I read a quote like that, I start reflecting on other things, and I look and I said, well, this is the same thing if you put in equality. History reminds us that equality is not a destination, it's a struggle. If you say the same thing about equity, ending racism, sexism, homophobia, everything is a struggle. But it's my destination. Is it yours? Is it yours? Is it yours? Because that's what we have to do as leaders and educators at our institutions. And when we work with students, we have to figure out the destination, even if it's hard, even if it's a struggle. That's what we do. And I love it when Chris talked about it, because Lynn and I talk about it all the time. We can't say no. We can't say no. This is the work that we are committed to doing at AAC&U. And as we move forward, we just need you to say yes with us. Be part of this. So what role will you play in the struggle? What role will you play at your institutions after you've heard what you've heard today and you're going to hear what you hear across the annual meeting? What role will you play in the struggle? Well, I can tell you what role I'm going to play. This is a picture of my husband and my son. And since Lynn started off with the Martin Luther King thing this morning, I'm going to tell you. And we'll know we're in Atlanta. Our family's from Atlanta. You see my husband is wearing a 84th back Falcons jersey. There we go. Where you go? We're the Falcons fans. Come on, we've been working on football things all day, right? Gail started off saying we're going to work on the football thing and we're going to work on this. So we were at the Martin Luther King Center at over the holidays. And you know how little boys are. My son is 9 years old, and he did not want to go to the MLK Center. I shared this when I was at Lansing Community College. He did not want to go to the MLK Center. He would rather have been playing with his cousins on his game, right? So we take him to the center, and he's walking around, and he's, I'm here, and I show him the pictures of the march, and I said, remember when I took you to the march, the anniversary march? And he was like, yeah, whatever. He wasn't engaged until he got thirsty. He got thirsty. And we found a water fountain, and my husband said, this is the opportunity for us to make it real for him. So he went over to the water fountain, and he got his water. And then we came back, and we said to us, you said, you know that if you were thirsty years ago, you wouldn't have been able to drink from that water fountain. And he said, what do you mean? I just wanted some water. And my husband said, you would not have been able to drink because it would have been against the law. And he said, but I'm a kid. I don't understand, I'm a kid. And my husband said, it doesn't matter, they would still arrest you, you would still be breaking the law. And this moment right here, and I stepped back, was when he paused to start paying attention. What's going to be that moment for our students? What's going to be that moment for us on our campus when we pause and say that we got it? That's my role in the struggle, and my role here as a leader at AAC&U. And I have to end on this because Lynn is a Patriots fan. And I was at the Falcons game, and at the Falcons stadium, they say something. You hear it. It's chanting all through the stadium when the team comes out on the field. Does anybody know what it is? Rise up. Rise up. We need to rise up. Now, she told me that I was going to lose my job over this, so I want y'all to know that when I told her, so if anybody's looking to hire me, we can talk later, because she told me if I did this, I was going to lose my job. Yes. See, do you see? Now, do you see? Bethany knows. Do you see what we work with here? But we need to rise up. I don't care if you're a Falcons fan or not, but we need to rise up and do the work that we've talked about today. And I just want to say again, thank you. Thank you for being here with us and having this conversation. And we hope that you enjoy the rest of the conference and that you join us for the members' meeting. We owe everything that we do to the people who are on the campuses every day. And we thank you for supporting AAC&U, and we thank you for being here and being part of the struggle. So have a nice afternoon. Have a nice evening. We'll see you at the members' meeting.